was my first and last mistake. I'm blue without your face. But what can I do? 'Cause I'm just a sinking ship, and you're just a pair of lips that I've lost in the moment. All I want is for you to come back. Now I'm caught in the middle of life, and I need.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Red Pill Diaries. I'm your host, your brother, and your friend, Rashid, and I'd like to thank each and every one of you for giving me another hour of your day and another day of your time, because you did not have to do it, and yet you chose to do it. So on that note, I want to just give you all thanks right now and say I really appreciate it from the depth of my heart and the bottom of my soul. Thank you so much. The show is titled what? Tell me what the show is titled. Well, Trouble in Washington, the economic climb down. Now, why did I name that show this? And this was an off-the-cuff name because I've been watching the news lately, and I've been seeing everybody talk about the situation with Russia and the United States and Ukraine, and they're talking about the situation with Trump, the tariffs on China and everything. But a lot of people are refusing to explain the what is really going on with that and why these things are now taking place. But I'm your friend and your brother, and we're going to go through this, and we're going to try to examine all of this stuff and get to the nitty-gritty, get to the bottom of this. Now, Trump has been showing a lot of bluster about these sanctions. As a matter of fact, on one article, he says U.S. slaps tariffs of up to 3,521% on China-linked solar imports. Now, China is the undisputed world champion in solar energy and renewable energy. They're just leaps and bounds ahead of everybody else, and the technology is just leaps and bounds ahead of everybody else. But I guess China stole that too, huh? Everything China has is stole from the West. They can't be innovative. They cannot be self-thinkers, unlike the West. You know, when they say those things, those are racist thoughts. You know that, right? The reason China must steal is because China is not a Western nation, because China is not innovative. The reason Russia must steal hypersonic weapons that the United States doesn't have, is because those are those snow niggers, orcs they call them. The reason Iran must have stolen technology from us is because those are sand niggers in the desert. I've heard these terms. These are not my terms, so don't get offended by this. These are the terms that were put on these people. So they don't believe that anybody outside of the West has the capacity, the capability, the ingenuity, or the inner self to bring out the God in them. They don't believe that, because the West has dominated so fiercely and so strongly in all of these different positions in different areas of technology, war, military superiority, farming and everything. And now when the United States no longer has the iron claw grip on it, China must have stolen it, Russia must have stolen it, Iran must have stolen it, South Africa must have stolen it, Latin America must have stolen it, the Caribbean nations must have stolen it, and all of Asia must have stolen it. Because how could they come up with rail guns that the United States had been working on for 30 years and then trash all of that research? They put in billions and billions and billions because they could not formulate a working rail gun, while the Chinese took what the United States were planning, and they have the working rail guns on their Type 55 warships. Working rail guns, right? The United States says China stole the plans for the F-35s and all of this stuff. Maybe they did get some of that from it, but at least their warplanes are working. So evidently they tweaked it to make them work efficiently. You don't have to park the plane in hangars when it's lightning or raining, like in the United States, that the F-35s can't fly in heavy rain or lightning. What kind of crap is that when this is the most expensive plane in the world ever? Do we sit back and think about this? Do we recognize the foolishness coming out of these people's mouths? Evidently, we don't, because we buy it hook, line, and sinker. But what's amazing, I kept telling you guys, the debt market would force them on a climb down. I told you that. The United States is in debt to everybody. Everybody. Even these so-called, I can't say the words, but poop hole nations that Trump described in his first term, when he looked at African nations and Latin American nations and Middle Eastern nations and called them excrement holes. This man is supposed to be the diplomat. He's supposed to be the leader of the so-called free world, and who's supposed to show compassion to nations. And yet he insults them on a daily basis. What if Iran stopped recognizing America and started calling her an S-hole nation? Huh? You wouldn't like that. You would say that would be an affront to America's dignity. What about J.D. Vance in an interview calling Chinese people peasants multiple times? Peasants. Huh? How is that respectable language coming from the second highest officer of the land? And yet it's a hit and miss. Because it's inconvenient truths, you see everybody gloss over it. They say it, then they gloss over it and leave it alone, and don't tell you how this blows back on the American empire. The arrogance, the hubris, and all of these detached comments, this blows back. This makes people question, do you really want peace? Do you really want to trade? Do you really want to engage in substantial talks or substantive talks? And if not so, then why are we talking? China must come. What did Trump say? We're open for talks with China. Trump wants direct talks with Z. Now, here's an article right here I'm going to pull up, okay? Because this happened on the 21st, okay? This was before the economic climb down. Now, you imposed 145% tariffs, and then you imposed 30-some 100% tariffs on the solar industry. And the Chinese, they say you're a laughing stock. We're not going to impose many more sanctions on you because it's irrelevant now. We'll turn inwardly because we have a nation of 1.45 billion people to buy our products. We built up that domestic ecosystem now that we don't have to rely on you. And by the way, our reliance on you is only to the tune of 12 to 15%. So if you want to act that way, we can pull out. We don't need you. Why? Because Africa is the opening market. What did one Chinese and one Russian leader and dignitary say? That Africa is the future. In economics, in technology, in trade, in all of that. That Africa stands at the crossroad, right? And that it is Africa that holds the keys to economic prominence. And that's why you see Russia making inroads. That's why you see India trying to make inroads. That's why you see China inroads. Why? Because Africa has the largest population on the planet Earth, 1.5 to 1.6 billion people. So now China can tap that. The United States has 335 to 360 million people. Europe has 500. In some cases, they say 800 million people. So Africa alone, that market alone, if tapped right, is larger than both the United States and the EU's market. And it's primed for growth. You understand what I'm saying to you guys? Let's go to something. Let's go back to this. And I'm going to shout out before I go to the article. I got to shout out to the two early birds that were in here. Shout out to Grizzly. Grizzly was in here early before the show started. Rashid Rocks, salute to you. Nunya. Nunya Bissay, let's go. Let's go, champ. Patricia is in the building. Hello, Rashid. Hello to you. Perseverance Chameleon is in the building. Salute Rashid and everyone. Patricia says, pure racism makes me sick. Absolutely, Patricia. William Gilchrist, hello from Ireland. I believe that's from Ireland. Salute to the Irish people. Eudaimonie Williams, I'm sorry, I'm messing your name up a little bit, says, we take red pills and wear red beret on our heads, Captain Africa. Salute to you. Shout out to my guy Joel Bradford in the building. Now, let's go a little further in this. Let's check out this article, okay? The article is titled, Trump Wants Direct Talks with Xi. Now, before we go into the article, let's look at something, okay? Trump was braggadocious, telling you what China needs to do and China has to do, and that whenever China calls, then we'll be ready to listen. But until then, these tariffs will remain, and we'll do this and this, and if need be, we'll up the tariffs, and we'll do this, and we'll suspend Chinese companies off the stock exchange. We'll do this and this. Go look it up. All right. Now, Trump wants direct talks with Xi, according to Politico. That does not sound like a come down by China. That seems like the man who started the trouble now finds out that the kitchen is a little bit too hot for him. And he's calling the fire department to see if they can come back in and say, listen, we'll put the fire out for you, but you got to stop lighting all these fires. It seems like that's what it seems to me, because when you're in a seat of authority and position, you're not begging for talks. You're waiting for the people who you have put your scope on to come to you for talks. But it's the other way around. But in the Western world, I'm sorry, my phone went off. Bizarro world. Up is down, down is up, in is out, and out is in. The truth is flipped on its face for falsehood. And they put this stuff in here because they know the average readers don't read for understanding. They just read to say they've read. So let's go into the article a little bit. It says the U.S. president is reportedly not interested in formal diplomatic contact with China on trade. That's what it says. U.S. President Donald Trump has stifled almost every channel of diplomatic outreach with China, aiming to deal directly with his Chinese counterpart, Xi Jinping, as the trade war between the two superpowers escalates, Politico has reported, citing anonymous sources. Now, the increased tit-for-tat duties between the U.S. and China is part of a broader U.S. tariff campaign against more than 90 countries, said to be aimed at addressing unfair trade practices. Now, listen, how can the United States, first of all, talk about unfair trade practices when they have been using trade as a weapon since they've had the dollar as the dominant currency around the world? How do you think there's an overthrow of leaders when the United States manipulate interest rates? Is that not unfair? Where you manipulate your interest rates, which causes bread to skyrocket in Egypt, and it causes a shortage of bread, and the people are in uproar, and then they think it's on the back of the government leaders, and then they overthrow the government leaders, and then they bring in a compliant U.S.-leaning leader there, all because of the manipulation of the interest rates or the sanctioning of goods against certain nations. Huh? That's not unfair. When you can do it to everybody else, but nobody can do it to you. What about using this exorbitant privilege of having a world reserve currency, where you get a cut like a gangster does, right? Like a dope dealer does. When they take their portion, they give it off to the middleman. The middleman goes and sell it to the little people who sell small amounts, but each trade-off, the man at the top gets a cut of everything. So when you use the dollar in international commerce, international trade, the United States gets to see whoever you're trading with, what they're buying, what you're selling, and then they get a portion of the revenues from those transactions. What the hell you mean unfair trade practices? How can anything be more unfair than that? Huh? Man, let's go a little further. It says, while Trump has paused the hikes for most countries for 90 days, Beijing was excluded and faces a 145% tariff. China has retaliated with 125% tariffs on U.S. goods and restricted certain key exports. This is what's making the Climbdown happen, those rare earths. And China has suspended trade, had turned around their shipping, the ships that were headed to the United States and said, don't even worry about it. Don't even worry about it. Bring them back to port. And on top of that, the Chinese said, we're suspending buying beef from the United States, buying soy from the United States. Some of the biggest sellers to China. China is the biggest buyer of that product, those products. And then on the other hand, you know what China's told all those major corporations of Chinese origins and those who are located in China? Don't worry about paying your debt back in dollars. Now, turn that around this way. So this is hitting the U.S. economy hard. If anything that I'm saying, just go Google it. Rashid is not making any of this up. Minor threat, no guest today. I don't. I just want a free flow. Sometimes it's good, and some of my guests all ask me to do shows sometimes without anybody on there. And I'm gonna probably have some guests next week or something like that. But right now, I want to answer the call of some of my other viewers who want me to just freestyle. Okay, I hope I answered you. All right, so and I have plenty of people that would have come on. Okay, but sometimes it's good to connect with your audience, with you, let them see you as you are, because a lot of these people that interview people, they can't interview real good, and you could tell they're reading some off a spreadsheet, and they have some of the biggest guests, but you can tell that they're boring without the guests, and they can't really do shows without the guests because they really don't have the knowledge to do that. They really can't do that without feeding off of somebody. Well, I'm feeding off of somebody. I'm feeding off of you guys. The energy that you give to me, I give back to you. All right? So let's go a little further. It says, the U.S. president is adamant about direct negotiations with Xi and has stifled other diplomatic avenues. So you impose sanctions. You said Xi must call you. You say that the tariffs will remain. You say that you're going to put even more tariffs on them, and then you turn back around and say, hey, I don't want to talk to anybody else. I want to talk to the man calling the shots in China. I'll call him. We can have a conference. As a matter of fact, there's an article out today. I forget where it's at. Maybe I can pull it up real quick in a second. I'm going to show you how they lie so much, okay? I call these politicians rugs because they lie so much, they should be rugs. All right? So let me go to something real quick. Let me see if I can put it up. Give me a second, everybody. All right. Come on. I'm pretty sure I can pull it up. Give me a second, everybody. What is going on here? Something is freezing here. All right, let's go there. I'm not a robot. I'm trying to pick up something now. It's asking me if I'm a robot. All right, let me see. Nah, I can promise you I'm not a robot. I feel the bumps and bruises of all those years of martial arts. I can guarantee you I'm not a robot. Let's see. What? So phone call. I don't know. Yes, come on through. Yes, come through. Yeah, come put them right here. Thank you. So I'm gonna have to. Something's going on where it's blocking me from accessing it. Okay, I'm sorry, everybody, but there's an article. You can look this up. I'm gonna give you the information of it. The article is this. They were talking about how Trump was saying that there's talks going on between China and Russia right now, and they were talking about this stuff here big time. That the talks between China and Russia are going on about these sanctions, and China comes right back and says there's no talks going on. The U.S. is lying. Google this stuff. I'm not lying. Google it. Man, I wish let me see my phone for a second. Hold on one second. I'm gonna try to pull it up. Give me a second. I bet you I can pull it up on this. This computer is being blocked right here from doing it. Cause see, I like to prove what I'm saying. Yeah. Let's see. Everybody. Let's see. Iran strategic partnership. Let's see. South Africa, Pakistan. Trump signed executive order. Here it is. Told you. NBC News is reporting that Trump says the U.S. and China are actively discussing tariffs. Beijing says it's false. And Beijing then comes back out and say, before we can even talk about tariffs, man, you got to get your act straight. You got to stop with all this foolishness that you're doing, all of this pandering before the camera. You got to stop that. You got to stop all of this brash, cowboyistic talking and talk to us like men. Do you understand what I'm saying? And China said that there will be no talk on. You put the tariffs on us, you take them off. And that's how real men are supposed to act, right? And so I said that to say that to you. You can go to NBC and pull that up, right? I'm giving you where you can look for that on NBC News, all right? Because we're going to talk about Musk too when it comes to this. But hold on, let me go back to something real quick for you guys. All right. Go back to that article, and then we're going to go up a little bit because I want you to, after the IMF issued a stern warning against the U.S. and against the world economy. Remember, I talked about this on the other show. When the IMF, it says World Economic Order undergoing major reset, right? This is the IMF because we're going to do this in chronological order so that you can get a feel of what's really going on, okay? Let me take this off my screen real quick. Boom. All right. The IMF, I think this thing is, I don't know what's going on here. Hold on one second. We'll do it from here. All right, there it is. It says the International Monetary Fund has slashed its 2025 global growth outlook. International economic system is undergoing a fundamental transformation due to mounting uncertainty over not China's trade policy, over U.S. trade policy. The International Monetary Fund has warned, announcing a cut in its global growth forecast. Since returning to office in January, U.S. President Donald Trump has imposed sweeping trade restrictions, culminated in what he called Liberation Day tariffs, introduced on April 2nd at levels not seen since the Great Depression, the IMF has said on Tuesday. Its World Economic Outlook report projects that global growth output will slow to 2.8% this year, down from 3.3% in 2024. As recently as January, the IMF had forecast growth would hold steady in 2025 until Trump introduced his sanctions. So not only is Trump blowing up the U.S. economy, he's blowing up the global economy. This is something that you cannot lie about. I don't care if you're pro-Trump or anti-Trump. If you go with the Dems when they're crazy tales, or go with the Republicans and their crazy tales. See, I'm apolitical. I can say it about both sides. I don't give a flip which side you choose, because both of them have been compromised. Okay, and they are not in it for the business of people. They're in it for the business of big business. Okay, so we see that the IMF issues after Trump starts with this braggadocious, this cowboy, we're going to up the sanctions, we're going to do this. Then the IMF comes out. Now, I want you to understand how serious this is. The IMF is a so-called international organization that is run by the U.S. and the U.K. They are run by the U.S. and the U.K. Yeah, they have minor people up in there, but the U.S. and the U.K. run the IMF. So for this to be put out there, this lets you know how serious the situation is economically, which is causing the Climbdown at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Okay. Now, after that, this is what comes out April 23rd. U.S. ready to walk back some Chinese tariffs. Remember I told you the Chinese said, no, you did this. We didn't do this. We responded to your arrogance and belligerence and hubris. So if you want to talk, before you talk, show some actions. The same way before you talk to us, you showed actions with irrational policies against us. If you want to talk, then you're going to have to kill these irrational policies that you put in place. If not, we don't care. We don't care. Man, before I read that, I'm going to show you what the Chinese politicians are saying, okay? If you think I'm lying about this, I want you to listen to this. You know I come prepared. You know I have my stuff, all right? So I want you to listen to what this guy says. Where is he at? Where is that at? All right, here it is. I want you to listen to this, okay?
China is fully prepared to fight to the very end because the world is big enough that the United States is not the totality of the market in the world. So if the United States wants to go in that direction of completely shutting itself out of the China market, be my guest.
Yeah, and China will lose the US market, which, as I've said, is 15%.
We don't
You
care.
can't...
We don't care. China has been here for 5,000 years. Most of the time, there was no United States, and we survived. Right. And if the United States wants to bully China, we will deal with the situation without the United States. And we expect to survive for another 5,000 years.
When you hear Donald Trump say China wants a deal, it just doesn't know how to go about it. They're proud people. J.D. Vance talks about Chinese peasants. What do you make of their conduct in this respect?
If J.D. Vance thinks that he's dealing with the peasants in China, and I'm proud to be a descendant of the peasants, most of us are descendants of the peasants anyway, that's our tradition. We are farmers before, but now we are one of the leading industrialized economies in the world. So I'm sorry, J.D. Vance doesn't know what he's talking about. And therefore, I don't think there will be China-US dialogue unless the United States changes its attitude towards China. Deal with China as it is, show respect to China, show respect to the Chinese people, and don't try to impose your prejudice and biased view about China or about the rest of the world.
So, see, I'm not making this stuff up that I'm telling you. We're going down a timeline. I'm walking you down a timeline. So, after hearing that, he said, we don't care. He was trying to make it clear to the British commentator, we don't care what the United States does or says anymore. Both you and the United States have become irrelevant to China. We have our own ecosystem domestically. And then we have an outer ecosystem that we've grown with Africa and the BRICS organizations, the AAIB Bank, ASEAN, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, the Eurasian Economic Union, the West Asian Economic Union, the Latin American Economic Union, the Caribbean Economic Union. We don't care anymore about what you're talking about. You have made yourself irrelevant with sanctions and bullying and war and domination. We don't care anymore. The passion in that man when he said that, that's what you should have been listening for. So let's go back to, I told you I always come prepared, so I don't have to get prepared. So listen, it says, Washington has imposed 145% tariffs on Chinese goods in an escalating trade war with Beijing. And it says, President Donald Trump has signaled, now it didn't say Xi Jinping signaled, it said President Donald Trump has signaled a potential easing of trade tensions with China, announcing that tariffs on the country's goods would be lowered significantly. He added, however, that it won't be zero. Horse climbing down off the high horse. Talk to me. Talk to me. After all of this braggadocio, oh, they're going to come to our door begging. They're going to come to our door begging. They're right now begging. All of these nations are begging. We'll do whatever you say. Just take the sanctions off of us. Remember Trump said that last week? Huh? Does it look like that in reality? Huh? I'm asking. Does it look like that in reality now? All right. Listen to what he says. After all of this stuff, talking down to China, his vice president calling them peasants and doing all this. Listen what he says afterwards. Salute, Michael. He says, as part of the sweeping Liberation Day tariffs on major trading partners, Trump sharply raised tariffs on Chinese goods to a staggering 145%. The moves deepened the trade conflict between the world's two largest economies, despite growing concerns about the global economic impact. On Tuesday, Trump seemed to change his approach. we're going to be very good to China. What? China is not going to steal from us. We're not going to allow China to do this, and we'll ban them out of the market if necessary. Oh my God. What difference does a week make? Now, we're going to be very good to China. Oh, no, not only we're going to be good to them, we're getting ready to take those high tariffs down on them. And then maybe we can talk to them, even though we said we're talking to them, but the Chinese blasted us and said we're not talking to them. So maybe we have to do something to appease our largest trading partner, where we get all of our crucial minerals from. Where almost all of our products, whether they come from China directly or other countries around the world, which are party to China's trading bloc, where they have their own factories in there, and putting the name Vietnam or putting the name Cambodia or Laos up in there and shipping it out, but it's actually Chinese products and Chinese components, right? Maybe if we climb down off that ladder and off that high horse, maybe we can stop the economic slide. It's too late for that. Let's go further. He says, on Tuesday, Trump seemed to change his approach. Oh, man. So it wasn't Z that changed his, was it? Who changed their approach? Huh? According to the article, it was President Trump. On Tuesday, Trump seemed to have changed his approach. Well, seemed to change his approach. We're going to be very good to China after all this threat. I have a great relationship with President Xi Jinping. Now, at the beginning of the month, he was calling him a dictator. And all of a sudden, I have he's the president now. I have a great relationship with President Xi Jinping, he told reporters. And now he has his come to Jesus or come to Muhammad moment. 145% is very high, and it won't be that high. It'll come down substantially, but it won't be zero. But he was the one who was fighting against it coming down. He was the one who put it up there. And now when he sees the bond market sell off, and then he sees his closest allies like Japan and other nations starting to, you know what, man, this is a little bit too much. We're not going to buy those bonds. No. These people are off the rail. As a matter of fact, let me play something for you guys. This is what the Singaporean politician had to say about America. And everybody's questioning the friendship of America. And they see these policies for what they are. Just listen to what he says about what this so-called friend America is while we're on this subject, because this goes right in hand with this right here. I told you. I stay prepared so I don't have to come prepared. And I come prepared so I don't have to get prepared. So listen to this.
What the US is doing now is not reform. It is rejecting the very system it created. The US has imposed a blanket 10% tariff on imports for nearly all countries. On top of that, it has layered on higher tariffs, up to 50% for selected countries, especially those that run a trade surplus with the US. According to the administration, the sweeping tariffs are needed to fix America's trade imbalances. But there is nothing inherently wrong about running a trade deficit. It simply means that American consumers are buying more from the world than the world is buying from America. Moreover, the focus has been solely on the goods trade. That only gives a partial picture. In fact, the US runs a surplus with many of its trading partners in services, exporting software services, education, entertainment, financial and business services. But this fact has been completely ignored. In Singapore's case, we have an FTA with America. We impose zero tariffs on US imports, and we actually run a trade deficit with the US, meaning we buy more from them than they do from us. If the tariffs were truly reciprocal, and if they were meant to target only those with trade surpluses, then the tariff for Singapore should be zero. But still, we are being subjected to the 10% tariff. We are very disappointed by the US move, especially considering the deep and long-standing friendship between our two countries. These are not actions one does to a friend.
You see that? These are not actions one does to a friend. Now, if he's saying that and he's in Singapore, what do you think is being echoed across the halls of Europe? I'm asking. What do you think that the European people, as a matter of fact, they came out with another insult for the Europeans and they took it, they just bent over, no Vaseline, and just took it. What did Rubio say today? Rubio calls U.S. NATO allies a bunch of junior partners. Remember, that's what Vladimir Putin said, and then they all got livid and hot about it about a year ago when he said America doesn't accept equal friendship, equal partners. They must be, what did he say? They must be subjects or junior partners. She does not accept you on the same level with her. Do you understand what I'm talking about? Hey, listen, we have about 60 people in the chat. Please hit the like button. It's not going to cost you a dime. It's not going to cost you a dime. Please hit the like button. Okay? So, let's go back to the article. So now, after hearing that person from Singapore, the politician from Singapore say what he said, let's go to something. Oh, what's that? Yeah, hold on one second before we read that. I got to go down to Michael. Michael hit it on the head. Junior partners, the disrespect, absolutely. This is what I tell you on every show. The U.S. does not respect you. They can't, when they write policies, carry out policies like this, produce policies like that, and then they think that they try to dumb you down so much to make anybody who calls them out to be an enemy or anti-patriot or a hater against Trump. No, we are a hater of lies. Yeah. He said, ask Bud Light what happens when countries decide to boycott. Well, I'm trying to, man, what's going on here? I lost my YouTube studio right here. I'm trying to bring it back on board. I can't see you guys in the YouTube thing right now. I'm only looking at you guys on my dashboard on StreamYard right now. Maybe YouTube is pissed at me right now, but as I always say, it's best to be pissed off and get pissed on, and we're gonna keep it pushing. All right. So it goes further and says, earlier on Tuesday, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent reportedly said that the current trajectory of the trade war is unsustainable. Listen to this part. It's very important. And I didn't even read that part before. It says the current trajectory of the trade war is unsustainable, raising hopes for a shift in policy. Danielle is building. All right. So what does that mean right there? What does that mean? That means that the Treasury Secretary understands that the United States no longer has the privilege to just sanction everybody, especially its economic peer. China holds about 700, 800 billion in U.S. debt. It's also putting the screws on Elon. Get what I was telling you. Let me pull it up. All right. This is why Elon, nobody's telling you, this is why Elon is trying to step back a little bit, because he was a part of this, pushing these policies like that. All right. But where is it at? I just had it. We have a little bad weather, so it'll probably be a little pausing in my internet a little bit now. It says good internet, but I'm pretty sure that there's some things going on right now that are messing with some of you guys viewers. All right, so where is it at? Let me go back. Here we are. Right. Boom, right there. This is according to BusinessInsider.com. Elon Musk is saying that China wants assurances over magnets for Optimus, all those robots, those humanoids, right? That Elon, and here it is. Elon has to build these things in China and use Chinese technology and Chinese components. And yet he was pushing a trade war with China against TikTok, Huawei, and all of these other Chinese entities. And now he realized that the screws are being turned. And now, guess what? When the screws are being turned after Trump upped the tariffs on what? The solar industry coming out of China, guess what happened? China said, I got one for you. I'm gonna hurt you. I'm gonna hit you where it hurts. You know, your good old boy that's heading Doge or Dodge. I got you, player. I'm gonna turn the screws on him. And Elon has lost tens of billions of dollars in wealth in an instant. That's why he is now saying that he is stepping back from his position in the Trump administration. And he's talking Trump, hey man, I'm losing a lot of money. And all of these other 13 and 14 billionaires, including you, Trump, are going to lose a lot of money because we're invested over there, heavily invested over there. This is what caused the epiphany. This is what caused the epiphany and caused the climb down of this imperial high horse and imperial ladder that Trump was up on. That not just Trump, but the entire administration, let's say the government was on. He was hit where it was hurting at. Okay, so let's go a little further. It says, the measures against China are part of Trump's broader tariff campaign targeting over 90 countries aimed at addressing what he calls unfair trade imbalances. Well, and we've read that other part right there, so we won't go down to that. But what has gotten him, it says, China's position is very clear, he stated. We don't want to fight, but we are not afraid, and we'll fight to the end. Nevertheless, the door is open wide for negotiations. These are the Chinese talking. And now we see the climb down. This is in a chronological order I'm showing you. So that nobody can come after you and say, oh, no, it didn't take place like that. So after that, because remember, the IMF, well, let's go back to the first one we talked about. When Trump, let's see where it was. Let's go down a little bit because I want to give you the dates. All right. Where is it? I want to give you the dates. Trump wants direct talks with Xi. That's April 21st. China announces retaliatory sanctions against U.S. officials, April 22nd. Trump slaps tariffs of up to 3,521% on China-linked solar imports. That's April 22nd. The World Economic Order undergoing major reset by the IMF. That's April 22nd. Then Trump has this epiphany. U.S. ready to walk back some China tariffs. April 23rd. Huh? Now, here we are on April 24th. All right? All right, what? What is April 24th? All right, we're going to see in just a second. All right, let me go here real quick. Give me a second. Here we are. Boom. April 24th. China refused Trump's tariff talks claim. So this man is constantly telling you stuff, and then Putin and his administration comes out and say, oh, no, that's not going on. He says something about South Africa. The South African government said, no, that's not going on. He says, we're in talks with Iran directly. Iran said, no, we're in indirect talks. And then he says these things about China, and guess what the Chinese say? He's lying. So we have a track record here, a spotty, dodgy track record of whether or not to believe this man. Because listen what it says here. The U.S. president earlier signaled a potential easing of the proposed tariffs and said he has discussed the situation with Beijing. Beijing has pushed back on U.S. President Donald Trump's claim that tariff negotiations are underway between the two countries. No talks have taken place, and reports to the contrary are fake news. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Guo Jikun said on Thursday. Gao remarks followed Trump's comments on Wednesday, hinting at a potential reversal of his tariff policy. The U.S. president said tariffs on Chinese goods introduced earlier this month will come down substantially and promised a fair deal with China, claiming that he was very actively engaged with Beijing. And guess what? Gao came right out and said, this is all fake news. What is he saying? Trump is outright lying. That's what he's saying. That's what he's saying. That Trump is lying. I know people get mad at me for putting it. So notice that every time Trump came out, Gao said something too. And this is the foreign ministry spokesperson. See, you run head on. They're not allowing them to take the lead in this communication battle. But I think what Trump did was to say those things to his audience as to give him a justification for the climb down. Michael. Stop it, Michael. Stop it. Yeah. I think this was used as a justification because he understood that he had stepped a little bit too far. And when this happens, what do I tell you guys the 3 R's of empire are? Rest, rearmament, and recalibration. They need a rest from these sanctions that is traumatic to the U.S. economy. And not only to the U.S. economy, but to the U.S. sphere of influence globally. Because these nations are now saying, hey, we're not benefiting from this. How is you saving us because you got a problem with China? How is that benefiting us when we trade with China? You're giving us a choice. But the choice is not really a choice. So guess what? The people are going to side with the person that has more compassion for their situation. That's what we are. On the real, man, I'm telling you, see, these tabs on this computer, I don't know what's going on. The storm out here or whatever, the bad weather that's here, it's messing with the tabs on here. So I'm going to have to look down and pull these up because I can't even get my studio back up here. But Guo said this is all fake news at a press conference. He said, as far as I know, China and the U.S. have not held consultations or negotiations on the tariff issue, let alone reached an agreement. So what is he saying? She's diplomatic. He doesn't want to just come out and call Trump a liar because he understands that Xi and Trump has to deal with each other. But what he's doing is calling Trump a liar in diplomatic speak. So then it goes further. Beijing remains open to dialogue and mutually beneficial. Didn't I tell you guys that? Didn't I tell you guys that? More nations are starting to see this. And how you hear all of these people talk about bringing jobs back because the Chinese just stole the jobs. It wasn't America going to China because the economy had hit a roadblock. They didn't have anywhere to trade. The economy was stalling. The United States economy in the 70s was stalling. As a matter of fact, it had stalled out. Why in the flip do you think that they took the world off the gold and silver standard? Because they were spending more than they had in reserves. And then the nation started asking for their gold. Then they had to come up with another Ponzi scheme, which was the petrodollar. But the economy had taken a knock, so they needed cheap labor for big profits. The Chinese didn't come to America asking for that. The Americans went to China because they understood that China had a mass pool of income laborers. Matter of fact, this, I got to give it to Jimmy Dore, the Jimmy Dore show. He did an excellent job pointing these things out, and I'm going to play a clip from him. Jimmy Dore, you guys got to watch him sometime. The comedian Jimmy Dore, okay? I want to and he plays Jack Ma, the owner and CEO of Alibaba. Listen to how Alibaba CEO tells you exactly how things went down. All right? Go ahead.
Jack Ma, so he created Alibaba, which is the Amazon of Asia. He sees it clear as day. For 3 decades, the United States corporations raked in obscene amount of cash. So let's listen to Jack Ma. Let's listen to what he says.
We just want to control the IP. We just want to technology.
So he's saying that's what the United States said. We just want to control the technology and the IP.
Want the brand to leave the lower end jobs for the world. Great strategy. The past 30 years, IBM, Cisco, Microsoft, they made tons of money. The profit they made are much more than the 4 largest banks in China. But where the money?
So the American corporations made tons of cash, made way more money than all the banks in China. Where'd all that money go? Where'd it go?
There you go. Past 30 years, the American had 13 wars, spending $14.2 trillion. The money going there. What if they spend a part of that money on building up the infrastructure, helping the white collars and the blue collars? No matter how strategy good it is, you're supposed to spend money on your own people. And the other money, which I'm curious about, is that when I was young, I heard America is about Ford and Boeing, those big manufacturing companies. The last 10, 20 years, I heard about is Silicon Valley and Wall Street.
That's it.
The money go to the Wall Street. And what happened? Year 2008. The financial crisis wiped out $19.2 trillion USA alone. They wiped out all the white collars and destroyed 34 million jobs globally. So what if the money is not Wall Street? What if the money spent on the Middle East, Middle West of the United States, developing the industry there? That could be changed a lot. So it's not the other countries steal jobs from you guys. It is your strategy.
So this was America's strategy. China didn't steal our jobs. This was American corporations' big idea. It wasn't China's idea that America would take our manufacturing and send it to them. That was our idea. Why? Because it would increase corporate profits, because they could make their products cheaper. And then the corporations could get richer, and then they could buy jets, and they could buy yachts, and they could buy golf courses. But they didn't invest any of that money back in the Midwest. They put all that money into that stuff, or they put it into bombs for the Middle East.
So, I'm shutting down these 2 computers and I'm bringing them back up because something is going on. Anyway, so you see, it's always blaming somebody else for your problem, for the things that you did. See, as long as you were getting away with it, think about what he said. U.S. corporations made more money in China than all of the Chinese big banks. And now they're talking about unfair competition. And that the Chinese stole everything, and the Chinese did this, and the U.S. told, we don't care about all that other stuff. We just want to stay in control of the technology and this and this and this and this, right? And now they're losing in everything, and so it's China's fault. China stole this. China is not fair. China has unfair trade practices. China does this, and not pointing the finger at America as she manipulates interest rates, as America sanctions nations. You don't think sanctioning people's medicine, because that's what you're doing in Gaza. That's what you've done in Lebanon. That's what you've done across Africa. That's what you've done in Latin America. That's what you're doing across Iran and West Asia. You don't think that has ramifications for the people and the patients? That's not unfair practices. What about the unfair domestic practices? Huh? Well, people can't. Well, when people get in trouble, they're forced to get a public defender who's in bed with the attorney, state attorney, who's in bed with the judge, and they go to lunch and they talk about it, and then the public defender gets this person 20, 30 years for something like that. And then the corporation or the big wigs in Washington get slaps on the wrist. Huh? Do you understand? Let me show you how corrupt this country is. Denny Hastert, the former Speaker of the House, was caught in a bathroom propositioning a young boy. Okay? Do you know when he went before the judge, top politicians wrote letters of recommendation to the judge in reference to Denny Hastings. And then the media just wipes it away. You didn't hear anything else about it, right? All right? How is that justice and fairness? This is what I'm saying. The domestic policies mirror the international policies and right back. So when you hear me say mirror me back, that's what I'm talking about. How those policies mirror each other back. Okay, hold on one second, everybody. Let me see if I can break this up. All right, let's see where that goes. So that's what's going on. Let me see. Let me check the chat real quick. Shout out to Shelly in the building. Shelly, my girl, what's up? I like what Reggie 9 said, how he used a play of word right here. He used to play of words right here. All by design instead of all by design, you know. But all of this stuff is going on. And nobody bats an eye. All of these people let it go right over them. All right. Let's see. All of these people let it go right over them. Matter of fact, let's see. While I'm setting this up, I'm going to play something else for you, okay? Listen to this right here. This is a short one. Listen to this. As the Chinese lawyer responds to J.D. Vance, okay?
You will know the comments from the Vice President J.D. Vance calling the Chinese peasants. Where does that leave US-China relations and any sort of talks between the two presidents, do you think?
Allow me to be very brief. J.D. Vance and I went to the same law school, Yale Law School. I was 20 years ahead of him, and I'm ashamed for the ignorance and the bigotry he demonstrated, because he called China the peasants financed them, the peasants sold them goods. Let me just make one simple point. The middle class in China is larger than the total population in the United States. The urban population in China is about 3 times as big as the total population of the United States. So my advice to my alumni at Yale Law School, J.D. Vance, is wake up, or you go back to school to study more diligently to avoid making yourself a fool in front of the world.
So I have to correct him some. He says the so-called peasant class is bigger. It's twice as big as the United States entire population. The United States population is between 320 some million and 360 some million. China raised 850 million people out of poverty to the middle class, from being so-called peasants to the middle class. Do you know China has the largest proportion of billionaires now? Huh? All of this is sticking in the craw of the West, because these are things that they used to brag about. Freedom and have a way where you can come from nothing and build something. All right? And now they have put the brakes on that, and they are dumbing down the masses because they know implosion is coming. Economic implosion. And they want you as dumb as they can make you, so that you don't present a threat to them at home as everything falls apart. Listen to this.
I want to begin by telling you that partly what I'm going to say is going to upset you. And so I want you to remember that I'm just the messenger. I didn't make these things happen, but I do want to honestly tell you, if you would like a much more comfortable version of this, then just turn on your television or radio whenever you have a free moment on the toilet, and you can hear the make-believe. Because we live now in a weird time, weirder and in different ways from what we were used to. This country is, as Dr. Leon pointed out, we live in a time of decline. And then when an empire declines, which is something we haven't gone through because empires don't decline very often. So, but let me tell you, from the history books, a little bit we can tell, it's not fun to be in a declining empire. Much more fun when the empire is going up, which was the last century or a century and a half of this country, the ride up. We are now on the ride down. We haven't been prepared because we have leaders who cannot say a word about that. I want to just drive that home, because the split in this country is really about that.
So you see that? It's about to split in there. Matter of fact, I was trying to mute this on the dashboard. Hold on 1 second. I'm trying to bring it up to mute it. I'm having problems with these right here. Something's going on right here, but it's all good. It's all good. Now let's listen to the next one. I'm trying to fill you in because I know the time is limited. And I don't want to keep you all here all night because I know you got things to do. But just give me a few more minutes with you, okay? And listen to this.
Die US-Regierung gibt jährlich etwa $2 Billionen mehr aus, als sie einnimmt. Sie leistet lediglich Transfers an die amerikanische Bevölkerung und an amerikanische Unternehmen. Die Kongressabgeordneten, die über den Haushalt abstimmen, kamen ins Amt, weil sie für ihre Kampagnen von reichen Leuten bezahlt wurden, die keine Steuern mögen. Das politische System sagt also, gebt Geld aus, aber besteuert uns nicht. Daher haben wir in den Vereinigten Staaten ein chronisches Defizit, und Donald Trump gibt der Welt die Schuld dafür. Okay, ich würde ihn dafür durchfallen lassen, wenn er mein Student wäre. Er ist mein Präsident. Es ist ein wenig seltsam, denn als er das tat, verlor die Welt innerhalb von...
That was German. I'm giving you a look that even U.S. Allies, they're quoting economists now, and they're telling you how bad the things are getting. So that I put that up there because it had the words up in there. But we're going to go more into this, okay? All right, just give me a second. Bear with me. Give me 3 to 5 more minutes with, and let me just get a couple clips on it. Just listen.
Das politische System der USA hasst China.
1 second. Hold on. Here it is. This is what I was trying to get to.
The American empire is over. We're done. We peaked about 12, 15 years ago, and we are on a down. And it's very hard for the American people, which I understand. I am one. It's hard to get your head around that. We've had a century of on the way up, which is a lot more fun than on the way down. But it does happen to every empire. We're only the latest. Look at the British, how far they've fallen. We're in that process. So the problem with the trickle down is, yeah, there might be more jobs, but they're going to be created in China. They're going to be created in Brazil. They're going to be created in India. They're not created here.
Hold on, we're not done. We're not done. Let's go a little further.
It's over. The empire is on its way down. You can live with that. You can make that decline manageable. You can avoid a trauma, or you cannot. For every example of an empire that went down traumatically, I can give you one that didn't, and vice versa. That's a choice we have if we take it seriously, which our leaders do not. The unthought through strategy of Mr. Trump doesn't yet take into account that there's another competitor who can buy if you don't, who can sell if you don't. You're not what you were. In the latter half of the 20th century, it all made a kind of sense. The United States says jump, and everybody asks how high. But we're not there. Nobody can afford to build houses in America now. Add 25% to the cost of lumber, kiss it goodbye.
One more for you.
Die Chinesen haben in den letzten 10 Jahren sehr hart gearbeitet.
And I don't want to hear no more Germans because I can't understand it. And I want to go to something in the chat. Let's see. It says the U.S. is going to find out that they should have been kinder to the world on the way up because they're going to get no love on the way down. Perseverance, that's what I have been saying. Common sense tells. This is how I know they've been smitten with derision by God. All of the leaders of the West, but especially and specifically in London, Paris, Brussels, and of course, Washington, D.C. Common sense tells me, if I'm relying on you for so many things, let me not antagonize you. Let me not try to step on your interests. Let me come to some understanding, and that way I don't have to spend so much of my capital to try to keep you in check. Maybe if I'm nicer to you, maybe we can do better business together, and it'll be a win-win situation. But America, she continues to antagonize everybody from friend to foe. And then her so-called allies do the same. Look at what they're doing to Russia. How insane is this to follow America down? This America has oil and gas deposits here. Europe has little to no. None. And in their mind, they followed the sanctions regime when they relied on Russia for 40% of their gas, 30% of their oil, a huge amount of their wheat and farming supplies, the fertilizer, all of the precious minerals. You're going to sanction my palladium and my platinum and my gold. Well, okay, I'll keep them. Then try backing up your currency with paper. The insanity of these people. And then I go back to something that just blows my mind. Little England or the UK was once controlling the gold markets, right, with the London Gold Exchange. I tell you guys, everybody looks at America, but he who controls the money controls the policies. And that's why the U.S. Gold Exchange is tied to the London Gold Exchange, not the other way around. And that's why the New York Stock Exchange is tied to the London Stock Exchange, not the other way around. Okay? So these are two sisters, daughters of Babylon, working hand in glove, because if one falls and falters, the other one falls and falters also. So look, controlling this, right? Gold market. Why didn't anybody ever question this? England does not have one gold mine, not one. So how is it that England controlled gold trade and the price of gold? Is that not manipulation? How can a country that has no gold control the world's gold? Has no diamond mines, control the fluctuation of the prices of diamond and palladium and all of these other things? Tell me that. So now with the Shanghai Gold Exchange and the Russian oil bourse and the Iranian oil bourse and the Iranian exchange, this is challenging the West. And that's why these three particularly are in the anger of the West. And this is why Britain won't let up. This is why the U.S. won't let up. This is why they're only disguising their madness for, let's stop on the contact line. No, you want a breather. You weren't talking about stopping on the contact line when you made a push in Kharkiv or Zaporozhye. You want to talk about it now that you're getting beat down. You're not calling for a swift end to the war on real terms, what the victor determines it. You're talking about making the victor the loser, and you dictate the term. Man, if you don't stop this madness, and everybody should be calling this mess out. But that is why the U.S. is climbing down off his high horse, because of all of these things being made manifest. And remember, let me bring something back up to you. I gotta play this. Don't be mad at me. When I've interviewed Kiji is awesome. Kiji is awesome. Kiji Noah, journalist, Asian journalist. Oh my God, he's awesome. But I want you to listen again at what he says about if the U.S. starts a war, be it economically or militarily, with the Chinese. Listen to what he said, and we're going to bring the show to a close after this because I won't hold you any longer, right? Now, the last question of the night to you is this. If war breaks out, we know, but I have to pose this question to you because America is so dependent on China's export to the United States, and 93 to 95% of all goods on U.S. shelves and all the stores come from China or a subsidiary of China. When war breaks out and China starts an embargo on the United States, what will the economic scene look like? Because all hell should break loose, because there will be massive bankruptcy, massive unemployment, massive store closures, scarce food, scarce items. where would this take America at home when war breaks out in Asia between the two superpowers?
You know, let's just think about that a little bit. You know, I gave you a small idea when I said that, you know, there are 1,500, almost 1,600 companies that supply parts that the United States uses for air-to-air missiles or air-to-land missiles, right? So that gives you a sense. That's in a sector where they don't want that dependency. But if you think about everything else, you're absolutely right. The United States cannot live without China. There's a fundamental sense in which we are like conjoined twins, right? And if you separate the conjoined twins, you have to understand that it's the other twin, China, which has the beating heart and the liver and the brain, right? Right. So what's going to happen to the United States? That's exactly as as anybody could predict. Our economy is going to crash. Everything is going to be difficult. You know, you think of your average car. Your average car has 30,000 components in it. A lot of those components come from China. Think of your jet, has 300,000 parts. A lot of those components come from China. So if you cut China out of the picture, yes, we have to be ready for chaos. We have to be ready for supply chains to break down completely. And during COVID, we got a small taste of what that was like. You know, not enough chips. We don't have cars, right? Building materials are short. You know, everything is short. But simply the fact is that the United States, in its kind of monopoly stage of economic development, decided that it was going to financialize everything. What I mean by that is that the US corporations decided that they were just going to ask people to give them money or demand money from people and not make anything useful. This is what we call a rentier economy. You just collect rents, right? Well, how do you collect rents? Essentially, you collect rents because you have the force to coerce other people to pay you rent, but you're still not creating anything productive. You know, they sometimes say that, you know, GM is a finance company masquerading as a car manufacturer, right? I mean, they were making more money at one point from their loans than they were from selling cars. So there's a way in which the US has financialized its economy in incredibly non-productive ways. And therefore, it needs to have a productive substrata that's providing it everything it needs. And so if it decides to go to war against its productive subalterns, against its engine, right? You know, you're going to kill the goose, right? That lays the golden eggs. How is that going to work out for you? It's not. It's an act of madness. It's an act of suicide. And so that is what the ruling imperial elite have on the agenda. Why do they think this way? They don't think. They just believe. They're true believers. They believe that they are engaged in a war of good and evil. As Reinhold Niebuhr was the kind of architect of the Cold War, he said that we have to risk the end of the world in order to prevent the rise of, you know, the global South, of, you know, socialist movements. They honestly believe that. They really, when you hear them talk to themselves, they actually say these things to themselves. And that is what's so frightening, that, you know, this imperial elite is so out of touch with reality and so stuck on its ideological crusade that it would rather see the end of the world than the end of their power, because the end of their power for them is the end of their world. It's not the end of the world, but it's the end of their world as they see it. And they would rather end the world than let that happen.
I tell you, that's why they're preparing military scrimmages all over the world. This is why they are often deploying military and equipment everywhere. Even though that costs $10 billion, see the billions and billions of dollars, this is that catch-22. They're doing everything they can to preserve the empire, but they're putting more holes in the boat, and the boat, each move they make brings in more water, so the boat becomes more or less unstable, and it takes on even more water, producing more cracks as they try to move and get some of the water out over here. Cracks appear over there, but they don't see that. They're not trying to patch the holes. They're just trying to put themselves in a position to sink everybody else's ship instead of asking for the ship over there to help them to shore. These are lunatics, and then they want you to believe that they're not prepared for thermonuclear war, or they're not trying to wage war or try to attack the world, or they're not scared of the global south, or they're not interested in sanctioning China or the world. And when they say that, this is my response.
What you talking about, Willis?
So on that note, I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me on the most powerful platform for truth, bar none, on God's green earth. This is your platform for education, edification, and the upliftment of your soul. This is the Red Pill Diaries. I want to say this right now before we go off there. Hit that like button. It does not cost you a thing. Share this. Spread the word, because we continue to get beat up by the AI, the algorithm, and the powers that be. So please spread the word and check your notifications and check your subscriptions, because you may have been taken off of that or whatever outside our power. So I'm asking you to do that. So now I want to say, in closing, do right to everybody. Not because there's some material gain to it or some accolades behind it, but do right by others, because it's the right, the godly, and the humane thing to do. God sits high, but he looks. And I want each and every one of you who loves truth to know that I love you, but know that the love that I have for you always pales in comparison to the love that God has for you. Until we next speak again, stay strong, stay true, but above all things, to remember this, most important, to stay righteous. Hey, mama, your baby boy loves you more than life, and I'm going to let the world know every time. Peace, everybody. We out of here. Thank you.
Told you to walk away. That was my first and last mistake. I'm blue without your face. But what can I do? 'Cause I'm just a sinking ship, and you're just a